Hey everyone, welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones Cooper. The Cher Show is a musical that covers the icon's life, loves, and career. We get to see her ups and downs and the rise of Sonny and Cher, the duo she formed with her husband and collaborator, Sonny Bono, who is played by Tony-nominee Jarrod Spector, who joins us today. Welcome, Jarrod.
Thank you.
How you doing?
All right. Hey.
I love this musical for so many reasons.
Thank you.
The story is so strong and emotional. The dynamics between you guys on stage is just so engrossing the entire time. It's been, people have gotten time to see it, and even Hillary Clinton.
Even Hillary Clinton.
So
yes.
She just came to the show I saw. What was that like?
She's such a theater fan. It's so heartwarming, truly. She's insightful comments. She knows exactly how to say all the positive things without saying anything negative at all. It's a talent. That's a real talent, and she's very supportive.
And you play Sonny Bono.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an icon. And what was your approach to him? What did you take going into playing such a kind of iconic man in the entertainment industry?
Well, I think, our first impression, our primary impression as far as Americana goes is the Sonny and Cher comedy hour, sort of Sonny as the clown and Cher, the gorgeous goddess with the zingers. And so, of course, that's what I started with. And my wife and I watched every comedy hour episode just on repeat until we had all as much of the voice and the physicality down as possible. But then he's a real human being, right? I mean, that's the sort of heightened version of Sonny. And then you have to look at as the actor. You read the script, say, okay, there's a real story here. There is a backstage, and does he speak and act the same off stage as he does on stage? And certainly not. I mean, even there are some really cool tracks. Like if you get the best of Sonny and Cher, there's a track at the end called "Hello." It was the B-side to one of their albums, and it's just them talking at a piano, and it's such a different version of him. And they're, it's just conversational, and you're like, that's the guy that we need to find as much as we can for this show, so that it's multidimensional and multi-layered, and he's not just sort of the clown and then also the bad guy in her life because they get divorced, those kinds of things.
That's really interesting because we do all have sort of like a public face and a private face, and so much of the show is talking about those personal moments that aren't in front of a camera. So did you get to talk to Cher or anybody in her team to kind of get those things about Sonny that maybe the public didn't get to see?
I got to speak to Cher, but honestly, by the time we really had a chance to talk about Sonny, I had already built most of the character. But she definitely gave me some things. And one of the things that she said, which I just think is so sweet, is she started to say, Sonny would love it. And then she thought, and she was like, well, he wouldn't love every moment of the way he's represented, but the fact that he's up there at all, he would love it. And I think that there's something about that really harkens back to, there's a line in her eulogy where she said, Sonny had the confidence to be the butt of the joke because he created the joke. Yeah. And I think that he was resourceful and scrappy, and whatever it took to succeed personally and for them as a team, he would do, including, well, in this case, okay, I'm sort of the antagonist of this story, but I get to be in the show. I'm a character of the show, and that's good enough. Like that kind of thing. And I just think that was revelatory for me.
There is that balance in this show, though, because you do see the difficulties they face as a couple, and he doesn't always come off as like the nicest guy.
No.
But I think there is this effort to make sure that he is seen as this loving and whole person, and you can feel her love for him even though they've gone through these difficult times. I mean, why do you think that was important? Because, he's not living anymore. So I think they did this really fair kind of representation of him.
I think so, too. I think it's a fair representation of him, and I think that in order to tell the story of Cher, you have to tell the story of Sonny, and no one is the villain in their own story. So through a 2019 lens, we look at Sonny's actions and say he's a chauvinist and a misogynist and he's controlling, and I agree. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think that anything that he did was out of malice. Mm-hmm. And as the person playing him and defending him night after night, I have to be on his side as much as possible, and so that I have to see the good in him. And I think that the audience gets to see so much of the good in him. I mean, so much of the joy of playing this guy is how complicated and round and three-dimensional he is, because in the beginning, everyone just falls in love with him because he's the Sonny Bono from I Got You, Babe, and they're so sweet together. And the book that Rick Ellis wrote is so loving and so sweet, and you really get to watch them fall in love long before, which is the great setup to, the rug being ripped out, and suddenly, they've grown apart almost without even knowing it, which I think is is a truth. For so many of us, you go through your life and suddenly you're further apart from your spouse or your family or whomever than you thought that you were until there's an inciting incident. And in this show, it's a lot about this this contractual debate between them, but. He gets some redemption, even after that, and I think that I think it is a fair telling. I mean, I like to think that I defend him as much as I can, so that when the audience walks away, it's almost like they love him in spite of some of his actions, which I think is a pretty accurate portrayal.
And I think because you can see that Cher still has so much love for him, despite all of the ups and downs that they had. So you do walk away being like, relationships are complicated, and
Right.
especially when you're in the public eye and everything is so much more heightened, you kind of give people a pass a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't been so close and he hadn't been so important and like the main focus in her life for so long, she gave his eulogy. Yeah. She still talks about him, and she has said recently, there's no Cher without Sonny. I mean, there is sort of everlasting love, and of course impact, but love there. And I think that it comes through. I'd like to think that it comes through in the show.
It 100% does.
Good.
So let's talk about becoming Sonny.
Yeah.
When you first speak, at least in the show I was in, the audience gives out a big laugh because you really nail that kind of nasally voice.
Thanks.
So what was the kind of process of just getting that right and kind of respecting the man, but also like kind of digging at his voice a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no. That is kind of the trick, is that he's almost a caricature.
Yeah.
He didn't mean to. I mean, I don't even think he's putting it on. That's just how he spoke. And so our versions, again, our version of him, the version that I could just think of in my head, is almost a character. So the trick was being able to capture his voice without doing, I don't want to say this in a derogatory way at all, but like an imitation, or a Vegas imitation. That was not the point. The point is to be as authentic as possible so that the audience has the chance to suspend disbelief and say, okay, for the next 2.5 hours, that's Sonny, and those women are Cher, and that's the story that they get to watch and dig into without thinking, oh, that's an actor playing. So that's the trick, is to pull the wool over the eyes as much as possible. And so, we try to be as authentic as we can with voices and physicalities. And certainly when it came to his speaking voice, I did all the nerdy actor work. Okay, this is a guy, he was born in Detroit, but he moved to Southern California, so he's got this weird mix of vowel sounds from the Midwest, but also this really super laid back, and him, his noodly body with his arms, and he's just so loose, and he sort of sits back and his crotch forward, and he's very different from me. I'm this forward-leaning guy. And so finding all of that to try to make him as authentic and real as possible, so that when the audience sees him the first time, hears him speak for the first time, and hears him sing for the first time, those are moments that they remember and think, oh my God, that's Sonny. Yeah.
I loved that reaction to you when you first sort of broke out the voice. And I think another thing that really helps the audience transport into this world are the costumes.
Oh God.
I mean, Bob Mackie is a genius.
Yep.
And the costumes in this musical are so extraordinary. You get to wear some of these old school suits. And
they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they breathable?
No.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, if you've seen any of the, we've got some B-roll online that you can watch of us doing "I Got You, Babe," and it's what he wore on the top of the Pops in London when they first sang "I Got You, Babe." There's these like striped wool pants and a long sleeve wool sweater and a fur vest. And it's really warm, but it's fine. I don't wear it for that long. But they make them they really do make them as comfortable as possible. But it's wools. What are you gonna do? But they're so authentic. I mean, when I put the costumes on for the first time, and I think everyone in the cast had this experience. You put them on, and suddenly, all of your senses are heightened. Your sense of your character and your ability to, especially for me, to like sit back and be this other person between the wig and the this page boy wig that Sonny had, or his actual hair, but for me it's a wig. This page boy haircut that he had, especially in the late '60s, and then this one that we sort of know from more for the rest of his life, the shorter one with the mustache. When those things happen, the hair and the costumes, and they're designed the costumes are designed by actually Bob Mackie. It's wild. And one of my costumes is a Sonny Bono shirt from Comedy Hour that, it's one of those things. We had this, there's a scene that takes place in Vegas where it's like the succession of their shows, and there were we only had 2 outfits, but there were 3 stops along the way, and they needed a third. And Bob did the thing that only Bob Mackie could do, which is make a phone call and be like, "Send that shirt that he." And suddenly there's a shirt that Sonny Bono wore on Comedy Hour that they're fitting on me. You know, and it's just like every night I get a little bit of Sonny magic.
That is so cool because
Yeah.
it's really like he's in the theater.
He
a
really
little
is
bit.
in the theater.
That's
truly.
phenomenal. I remember Stephanie J. Block was here and she was talking about her first fitting with Bob Mackie, and she was like, "Where'd the fabric go?" Because there's a lot of skin.
There's a lot of skin. I don't have that same. I admit I don't have that. We have like one like shirtless bedroom scene, but that's quick, and the rest of my costumes cover most of me. The women have a whole other challenge, and it's a lot. But they're amazing. I mean, they're first of all I mean, every woman in our show is gorgeous and incredible and wonderful. But they've found confidence in these outfits, and it's really a marvel.
And you're lucky. You get to not only perform with 1, but 3 Chers.
It's true.
Let's talk about them individually. Michaela plays the young baby Cher.
Yeah.
And you guys get to really start the Sonny and Cher journey together.
Yeah.
What was it like kind of building that chemistry? It's such a sweet kind of moment in the musical.
Oh, I mean, I just love her. When we met, when you do a show and you walk into the room for the first day, if you don't know the person you're playing opposite, it's a moment because this is an arranged marriage for all intents and purposes. You are going to spend a lot of time, and it's like if you're in your 30s and she's in her teens, you're like, wow, how is this going to work? But she's magic. I mean, we got along immediately and became very tight very quickly, and she's wise beyond her years. She's wildly talented. So building that was so easy and natural, and I think that she would say the same. It was effortless in the best way to build that that love and that foundation for for the rest of the Sonny and Cher journey.
Yeah, and you can feel that dynamic because they did have an age difference, and there was this sort of like taking care of her.
Absolutely.
And it's so sincere, and you can feel that in the audience. And then Teal Wicks plays slightly kind of middle Cher.
Middle Cher.
And what is that like? Because you guys really are in the Sonny and Cher days doing the show, and
yeah,
there's a lot of partner work there.
Yeah, it is. I think for each of them, especially Teal and Stephanie, is they have to, and I have to, imbue each of our relationships with everything that has happened before, even if we weren't scene partners. So everything that happens with Michaela has to travel into everything that happens with Teal. And though they do, it's not entirely chronological. Of course, they, each Cher comes in and out all the time and keeps the audience guessing and talks to each other, and it's really fascinating. But for us, all the Comedy Hour stuff has to build off of what we did for I Got You, Babe, and everything that came before it. So Teal and I have this job when she walks on stage to just pick up right where the last one left off, and she's a beautiful scene partner, and and we started working together and became friends and close right away, and we're able to work off of one another and build this very complicated relationship that really is the meat of it, and it's the highest of the highs, the top of the top with Comedy Hour, and then the plunge after that, and the breakup, and there's some really meaty scenes in there that we have to get through, and then we have to hug and pretend tell each other we love each other afterwards.
And then with Stephanie, do you ever just look at her and be like, "You are Cher"?
Oh, I mean, when the show starts, I'm in my dressing room when the show starts, and the monitor is on, and the show starts, and she starts singing, and every night it's shocking.
Yeah.
She sounds just like her, but in the best way. She's not doing an imitation. She is embodying her in a theatrical representation of this woman, but she's giving you enough of this sort of authentic version of Cher that you buy it even just over the speaker, even without seeing her. And she looks like her, and the costumes are amazing, and the lights are incredible, and the staging, it's so exciting. But even just hearing her, you're like, that's her. So by the time, and Stephanie is just, she's very special. I mean, nobody needs me to say how special a performer, an actress, and scene partner. She's improvisational, and she's always present, and you just look in her eyes, and there's so much going on all the time. So it's just so easy to work off of her. Totally. Yeah.
And you're playing Sonny Bono, but this isn't the first real man that you're portraying on Broadway. You played Frankie Valli, and also Barry Mann in Beautiful. Mm-hmm. So what is it about these roles that's interesting to you? Is it harder or easier to take on a person who's real?
Well, I like that you think that I chose them,
okay,
and wasn't just cast in things and took the job. No, I mean, there is a certain amount of choosing, but I feel very fortunate that I've had the chance to sort of I don't want to say perfect, but improve and learn doing these roles in succession, because I can tell you that my first time going on as Frankie Valli was not the same as the 1500th time I played Frankie Valli.
I
And
want to stop you right there. He's not exaggerating. That was actually 1,500
yes,
times.
1500
I
performances.
read that. I was so. Did you ever like think you were him after that many performances?
This is no joke, like this is part of the problem of playing these real people for so long, because in the beginning you're like, I'm doing it. I am Frankie Valli. And then after a while you're like, I am Frankie Valli. And it's this weird thing where the audience, especially when in that show, you get to like, can't take my eyes off of you. And by the time you get there, the audience is, if they're on board, if you're doing your job right, if you've pulled the con and they're looking at you and seeing Frankie, then you disappear in the best way for theater, but in a almost a difficult way as a performer, because you're like, where is my sense of self? And you're gone, and there he is, and you can see them looking at you, but not really seeing you. They're projecting onto you this memory, or their nostalgia for this person, and they're looking at you and smiling, and you're like, I know you're smiling at me, and I know I'm doing it, but man, you don't see me at all. You see Frankie. But it's, I think one of the wonderful things about these biomusicals, and a big part of the reason to do them, is to help people to relive really special moments in their lives in American music history, and everyone who gets to hear Sherry for the first time, remember where they were when they were 13 years old and heard it, or the first time they heard I Got You Babe, or saw it on TV, and they get to relive that sense memory. I personally, I know that we all do, take that very seriously. That is very important to us, and to be able to deliver that to an audience when they want it is a big part of the reason why we do these shows.
Yeah. It seems like you really live and breathe theater. I mean, the way you're talking about it is so passionate. Is this what you always wanted to do?
Yeah, my parents took me to auditions when I was a child. So, I was on Ed McMahon's Star Search when I was 6 years old. My parents took me to I didn't go to the audition on my own. My parents took me. And so, of course, I was sort of, over the course of my young life, whether by nature or nurture, I ended up doing this. And I was in Les Miserables when I was 9 years old. So I've been in theater. I've been an animal of theater my whole life. So I did take a detour, and I went to Princeton, and I studied economics before I had like a total nervous breakdown. What am I doing here? Before sort of rediscovering who I wanted to be as an adult, and saying, okay, this actually is what I want to do. So that was empowering. And then I came to New York, and I studied at the Atlantic Theater Company for about 3 years, and then I was cast as Frankie.
And your voice is beautiful, and I know you have a show coming up.
I do.
So how can we check that out?
Oh, okay. So the show is called Con Artist. Coincidentally, it's at Sonny Hall next Monday, the 15th of April, and so Sonny Hall is this really amazing space. It used to be the Diamond Horseshoe downstairs at the Paramount Hotel on 46th Street, and this show is all about this. It's all about playing real people. And what that means, and sort of, how exciting that can be. I mean, my parents, again, I was on Star Search. I was Bobby Darin. That was my job. And then at home, I was Billy Joel because I played the piano. I've been just doing this forever. And, there is a conflict there in pretending to be other people and being rewarded for how accurately you can be someone else. But in so doing, there is a little bit of a who am I? And, a little bit of a loss of a sense of self. So that's what that show is about. And I got some really cool guys. My wife is Kelly Barrett, and she just played Liza Minnelli in the FX series Fosse Verdon that's about to premiere next week. It looks.
Cannot wait for that.
If the show is as good as the previews were set, they look amazing.
Yes, they look amazing.
Yeah, and so of course she's going to come and join me because she just went through this very same thing, and she's just a perfectionist and a brilliant artist, and so I'm so excited for her to come up and talk about that. And I got my buddy Andrew Rannells, who is just a megastar now. Oh my gosh! But he and I played Frankie Valli and Bob Gaudio together on Broadway years back, and so he's going to come up as well, which is so exciting.
Sounds like an awesome show.
Yeah, it's going to be really. At the very least, the music is going to be fantastic. We have a 10-piece band, and it's going to be fun music.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to check that out.
Yeah,
I know we do have one audience question before we get out.
Please. Oh, goodness.
What do we have?
Hi.
Hi.
I studied at Atlantic as
You
well.
did?
Yeah,
Oh,
I did.
fantastic.
Yeah. And I saw online that you had one of our teachers when you were doing Jersey Boys go and watch a performance and give you notes afterwards. And I was curious if you planned on doing that again for the Cher Show, or if not, how you go about staying on top of your craft for a long-standing show?
That's a great question. I think that doing a long-running show and finding consistency and finding a way to keep it interesting for yourself 100, 400, 1,000 shows in is a totally different skill set than what we do and what you're doing right now, right, or did do when you were at Atlantic, is the rehearsal process, the creation. It's so exciting, right? You get in the room and you make tactical choices and you find your actions, right, and you block the scene and it's all new and it's wonderful. And so the first 10, 20, 50 times you do it, it's new and exciting, and then you start to realize, okay, I've got to be able to do this every single night. And like it's the very first time. And the reason I had that teacher, Anya Saffer, come to the show is because I had done the show 1,000 times. And I thought, I just need fresh eyes to help me reimagine what I'm doing here and just talk to me about it as, you know, as an actor, as a teacher to a student, because I just have the utmost respect for her. And she did, and she was wonderful. I'm not quite there yet here. I mean, we're only 100 and some odd shows. I mean, plus, well, we don't count the, 30, 40, 50 previews plus the ones in Chicago for whatever reason, but, we don't count those. But I'm not quite there yet, and it's still very exciting. It's still very fresh every single night. But after a while, you have to find what inspires you to give 100% and to be present every night, because the reality is it's always someone's birthday or someone's very first show, or it's their anniversary or their wedding present or whatever it is, and it's a special moment for someone or many someones in that audience, and it is our responsibility and our privilege to give them 100% and to make it seem like it's happening for the very first time, always, that it's fresh, that it's never stale, that it's never old. And so whether it's, working off your castmates, which we all do, working off your scene partner and looking in their eyes and being like, okay, where are we right now? Where are we today? How does the air smell? And how is this line going to be a little bit different than it was yesterday? I mean, that's the trick of it. And, for everyone, it's a little bit different, but those are the things that I think about. And, because I'm like you, an acting nerd, and I went to Atlantic, I will reanalyze the show and say, okay, I'm going to take a new action in this scene, a slightly different choice so that it's interesting for me. Yeah. Oh, pleasure. Thank you.
On that note, do you have any sort of pre-show ritual or something you do to just get in the right headspace? I know when Stephanie was here, she said that they have these goddess cards and they pull one, and that kind of helps them unite as a Cher. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything that you do?
I have a 30-minute vocal warm-up that I always do that sort of, by the time that's over, I am very much in the headspace of being in the show. I say a little prayer and I put on my, I go through the ritual of putting on the outfit and the microphone and the wig, and by the time everything is on, and the show, and it's a little bit easier for me because the show helps me into it as well. I'm hearing the music, and it's, there's a bit of a Pavlovian response. It's like, okay, now we're doing the show, and I'm sort of in it. And by the time I walk on stage, I feel that I'm ready. But I'm not one of those people who, I don't take it off stage with me. Right until the moment I walk on stage, I'm me and joking around. And then once the show starts, once I walk on stage, I'm in character. And then when I walk off again, I'm me again,
Well, when I did see you perform, I saw Sonny, which was, I'm hoping is a huge compliment to you, because you really did embody him. Is. And I found myself even more interested in his story and his background, and did some research and listened to some songs.
Great.
I felt really more connected to Cher's life and her relationship with Sonny after watching you guys.
Oh, great. That is a huge compliment.
It was such a joy. If you guys want to check out the Cher Show, you can at the Neil Simon Theater in New York. Give it up for Jarrod Spector.